someday you'll be able to be like, I subscribed when they had 88 subscribers. Good for you. Hi, hello, my name is Allie. I'm an independent graphic designer coming to you from just outside Toronto, and this is my channel where I talk about what I'm knitting, how it's going, and what it's costing me. But today I thought I would tell you about some newer knitting podcasts that I've discovered recently that I think might be your new favorite knitting podcast that you just don't know exists yet. As for my mug and tea of the day, this is my Hoya Atelier mug, which is a little studio in Quebec, and out of it I'm drinking my usual Sloan Classic Earl Grey. As for what I'm wearing today, this is my Petite Knit Lyon sweater that I finished earlier this year. This is a pattern that accommodates up to a 59-inch bust. And this one, like I said in my video where I was doing my wrap up on this project, I just find this such an easy, cozy sweater to throw on. Like, it has a lot more ease than a lot of the other sweaters that I've knit, so I just throw this one on a lot, which means that our cost per wear is looking pretty good considering I finished this in late February, I think. So this project cost me $90 to make, and I've worn it so far 12 times, which puts our current cost per wear at $7.50 Canadian or about $5.35 US, which, considering it's only been a few months, I think that's pretty good. And I'm very curious to see where it's sitting like a year after it's been finished, when it's been through a whole calendar cycle. But I think it's gonna fare pretty well. And I also want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. So this video is sponsored by Unraveled. Unraveled is an Australian family-owned business that sells knitting kits. And what I really like about Unraveled is that their projects really put the focus on these sort of meditative and mindful qualities of knitting. Like, I think that for a lot of us, that's what drew us to knitting in the first place. And you know, sometimes I'm drawn into projects that are more elaborate and more fussy, and sometimes not so much stress relieving, just because I want a certain end result. And the projects from Unraveled are really designed to bring you back to that original reason that we all started knitting. So their kits come in these really cute bags that include everything you need. So I've got all of my yarn in here for the project. We've also got all the pattern details. So I'm knitting the essential blanket, and my blanket, as you can see, is currently very small because I am using this as my sort of mindful break from other things. Sometimes I will knit on it a little bit before bed. Sometimes I will just take it out into the backyard if I have a few minutes and don't feel like I have enough time to really sink into the more elaborate project. That's my main project at the moment. So I've really been enjoying having this on the needles as a sort of background project. And despite the fact that their kids are coming from Australia, like Canada's not close, came so fast because they ship worldwide with DHL. So like, if you really need a relaxing project right now, you don't have to worry that you're gonna order it today and not get it for a month. So if you wanna try knitting an essential blanket along with me or any other Unraveled kit, you can go to unraveled.store/AllieMakesEverything to save 10% off your order. Okay, so about 6 months ago, I did a video that was rounding up my personal favorite knitting podcasts. So these are ones that in most cases I have been watching for months and months and months. I was very well acquainted with them. They were ones that were popping up in my personal subscription box and that I was clicking on like every time they release a video. And as just a side effect of like what I would have been more likely to find because of how the algorithm works and all that, a lot of those channels were quite established channels, right? And I was thinking I would really like to do a version of that video that is focused on more smaller channels that are sort of just starting out. And I've seen with my own channel, like when other people mention my channel, that it can really produce a noticeable spike for you in your viewers and your subscribers. And I just thought it would be really nice to be able to do that for a smaller channel, and a bump that might be microscopic and not even perceptible to a more established channel could be really meaningful. So I have 13 podcasts on my list today, and I think that more than half of them have less than 100 subscribers. So we're talking like really small channels in a lot of these cases, which means that if you feel inclined to go check any of them out or subscribe, that's really gonna be noticed. And it also means that you might be signing yourself up in the future for the feeling of, I was really in on the ground floor of this thing, because I do think that the podcasts that I'm recommending today are good, and I guarantee you that some of these are gonna end up being big channels, and someday you'll be able to be like, I subscribed when they had 88 subscribers. Good for you. The other reason I want to shout out these channels is because I have so much admiration for the dedication that goes into continuing to make videos when the algorithm is not really helping you and you're not really getting a lot of positive reinforcement. Like, when you start a YouTube channel, every time you upload a video is kind of a crapshoot of just like, is this gonna be the one the algorithm decides to show to some more people? You just never really know. Some people post one video and it immediately takes off. Some people post 5 videos and then one suddenly takes off. Some people post 20 and then one takes off, or 50 or 100. And when you start getting into those higher numbers, I don't know that I could have done that. Like, I was pretty lucky. I think my first video didn't do much. I think it landed like under 100 views within the first 24 to 48 hours. But my second one did a lot better, and then the third one did even better than that. So I was lucky to get quite a bit of positive reinforcement, like basically immediately. So I just have a lot of respect for the people who are committed and still working on their channels, even when they haven't gotten as steep of a growth curve. And like I said, I think that all of them are good. I think that all of them could end up with channels with tens of thousands of subscribers, and you just have to kind of like hang in there until the algorithm figures that out, or maybe a mention here or there can help clue it in a little. So last time I did this kind of video, I formatted it as like superlatives, like this is the channel like I'm most likely to click on first, most budget conscious, best editing, things like that. But because the channels I'm talking about today are newer channels, they're also newer to me. I don't know them as well yet as the podcasts I was recommending last time, because like I said, these were personal favorites I'd been watching for months and months and months. So I don't feel like I can really categorize these ones in that way this time. But like last time, I will still be sharing with you their current subscriber count, their location in part so you have a sense of climate and whether they're knitting things that might be relevant to you, the kinds of things they tend to knit, the sizes they tend to knit those things in. And this time around, I'm also going to add in the average length of their episodes, because I think that can be a big factor as far as whether a podcast feels like a good fit for you in your life or not. And also how long they've been posting, because like I said, a lot of these are pretty new channels, and I think that's kind of a fun metric to look at. And like last time, I'm also going to include a little clip from one of their recent videos introducing themselves, because I think that so much of whether we like a podcast just comes down to vibe. Just like, do I like how this person talks? Do I feel like there's someone I might want to sit down and hang out with? And I think that a lot of that we judge within like 15 seconds of just like, is it a vibe? So you will get that, you will get your 15 seconds. And I did this last time, but I feel like it's also even more important for channels that are less established, because I mean, part of what goes along with a channel being less established is people are still figuring things out, right? Sometimes lighting's not ideal, sometimes audio's not ideal, sometimes it's just not as quite aesthetically thought out and pleasing background design-wise as podcasts that we're used to. So I think that when we have those sort of little mental hurdles to get over, the personality of the podcaster is all the more important. You need to like them enough to overlook some things, because I don't want to just talk up all these channels and having you have to go like personally navigate over to every single one of those, and after not being super taken by 2 or 3 of them being like, well, I guess I just don't like any of these, I just won't bother, because that's exactly what I would do. So my goal here is to make this as easy as possible for you to try out 13 brand new channels real quick. Oh, one more caveat I want to mention is that while I am giving numbers about their channels, I put my notes together for this a week ago, and this video is going to go up a week after I'm filming it. So these numbers are going to be about 2 weeks out of date, but like hopefully nothing has changed. You know what? No, hopefully something has changed radically. Hopefully one of these channels has gotten a sudden big break in the last 2 weeks. I think that would be great. Anyway, let's get into it. All right, so the first podcast I want to mention is Clover Knits.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley with Clover Knits, and I am back for episode 6 of my podcast. If you are new here, welcome, and if you are returning back, thank you as well. On this channel, I do talk about everything wonderful regarding knit and crochet.
This is created by Ashley, and she currently has 19 subscribers, which like, guys, this is an embarrassment to the internet, because she is the sweetest soul I have ever watched on knitting YouTube, and I just loved her instantly. So like, come on. She's been making videos for about 3 months, and she has about 6 episodes out, and she's based in Mississippi. So if you are knitting in the South and you're like, I cannot with all of these northern girlies in their like mohair and their minus 25 Celsius winters, like, she's your girl. Her episodes are on the shorter side. They tend to run between 15 and 20 minutes, and she's generally knitting, I think, around a size medium. So in terms of what she's making, Ashley works a decent amount with jewel tones, which this is something I hear all the time on my channel, is like, finally, someone who's not just knitting like plain boring neutrals. So unsurprisingly, color is something that also tends to draw me to other people's channels. So Ashley's working with a lot of really beautiful jewel tones. She does sort of a mix of sweaters, some mittens. She also does a little bit of crochet, and her channel is still kind of too new for me to feel like I really have a comprehensive view of what she knits, but that's sort of what I've seen so far. So like I said, she's just so sweet. It's just like instant best friend vibes to me. Like, she just brings such joy to watch. So her channel is extremely new. Like I said, not a ton of videos, but I just think that her channel is so promising. And sometimes I have a hard time getting into a new channel through all the sort of initial growing pains that a channel will go through, but I just found that her personality pulled me through all of that so effortlessly. I would recommend you start with her most recent video, because she was sort of having some issues with her camera not wanting to focus properly with her current lighting situation. So like, if you're someone who's going to be really distracted and off put by that, definitely do not try going back further in the catalog, but start with her most recent episode, which I will link all the episodes that I'm recommending down below. But subscribe for the future ones, and I hope that you will love her as much as I do. All right, the next channel I want to mention is Hear Her Hands.
Morning, Baltimore. Hi, my name is Jennifer. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why knitting and fiber arts and arts in general are political, and why we can't really put that aside right now.
So Jennifer's been making videos for about 7 months. She's put out 35 videos, and she has 27 subscribers. So Jennifer's based in Baltimore. Her episodes tend to be about 30 minutes long, and she's generally knitting around a size extra small. So as for what she's knitting, Jennifer does a lot of knits that are either textured or really beautiful stranded color work. So if that's your thing, I think she's a really great channel to check out. And one of the things I like about Jennifer is that she's very real in her videos. Her videos are very like laid back, low editing style, and she's very candid about just like the way life impacts knitting. And like sometimes it's not helpful and you didn't have a good day. She also talks a bit about some things that she does to help make knitting more accessible to her as a disabled knitter. She's also a knitter who's deaf, which is the label that she uses for herself, so that's why I'm using it for her here. And her primary language is American Sign Language, but she can also speak in English, so that's the format of her podcast episodes. And the video of hers that I particularly recommend checking out is her Knitting is Political video, which a couple of videos ago when I did my controversial knitting opinions, I mentioned having watched a video that was talking about the politics of knitting, and I couldn't remember what it was, and hers is not the one that I had seen, but when I was trying to figure out which video I had seen and looking for other ones, I found hers, and I think it's a really great watch and also just a good introduction to like who Jennifer is as a person and as a knitter. The next channel I want to shout out is Fire and Fiber.
Hello, Internet. Good morning. It's Audrey, and this is a Fire and Fiber podcast. I am an Anishinaabe woman, a mother, a social activist, a fiber artist, and this is where I talk about some of those things, primarily knitting and my love of fiber arts. I also throw in sprinkling some thrifting, coffee, books, whatever else tickles my fancy.
So Audrey currently has 31 subscribers. She's been making videos for just a couple months and has 5 videos out right now, and they tend to run between 20 and 30 minutes long. Now, she's located in the area now known as Southwestern Ontario. She's an Anishinaabe woman, so she's not very far away from me geographically. And she's just one of those podcasters who like her whole personality comes into her knitting and the way that she talks about her knitting and sort of peripheral things going on in life. Like she'll mention books here and there, she'll mention all kinds of different things, but it's all really fundamentally still about the knitting. But I just love getting those sort of little bits and pieces, and she's just a very like high energy, engaging, bubbly sort of person. I just really like listening to her. Her editing is also pretty fast paced to match the way that she talks, and the whole thing is just this really sort of like funny, chatty vibe of like you're meeting up with a knitting friend for lunch, you haven't seen her in a couple months, and like yeah, you're gonna talk about your knitting, but like you're also gonna like sneak in some other life stuff too, you know? You're gonna burst into laughter if it's inappropriately loud for the restaurant that you're in. Like it's just such a fun atmosphere on her channel. I just want to hang out with her. Like that's really it. So as far as what she's knitting, it tends to be a lot of sweaters and socks and some hats. She's generally knitting around a size XL when she's knitting garments, and she's very conscious of size inclusivity when she's discussing patterns on her channel. So the video of hers that I recommend you check out is her 6 misconceptions about knitting video. I thought this video was fantastic, particularly when she's talking about the sort of stereotypes that people tend to associate with knitters, what a knitter acts like, what a knitter looks like, and the way that that intersects with ideas of like diversity and inclusion and like who's allowed to be here doing this. So I just really appreciate the way that Audrey discussed this in her video and works it into this sort of lighthearted, fun format of knitting misconceptions in a way that doesn't feel like a bait and switch. You know, it's not like she's like, aha, now that I have you here, let me talk to you about diversity and inclusion. It's just very natural. It's just very much a part of the way that she thinks about things, much like how my broader views on a lot of things sort of sneak their way into my videos in a lot of little ways here and there. Sometimes it catches people off guard and they leave me weird comments. It is what it is. But yeah, I just really want to go hang out with Audrey, and I think you might too. All right, my next channel to recommend is Comfy Cozy Knitting.
Hi, welcome back to Comfy Cozy Knitting. I'm Laura Harden, and I'm so happy to be with you today. I'm literally so happy. It's been quite the journey today, just trying to make this happen.
So Laura's only been making videos for about a month, but she is on it. She's been putting up videos every week, so as of filming, there are currently 4 of them. They're all about 30 minutes long, and she currently has 33 subscribers. Now, she's also based in Maryland, so there's a real Baltimore, Maryland heavy skew here, which I don't really know where that comes from. I have absolutely no ties to Baltimore or Maryland more broadly, so it's certainly not a personal bias, but there's more of it on the list to come. So something about Maryland is really fostering the knitting podcast community. I don't know what it is. If you do, please let me know. So Laura tends to knit a lot of socks, mittens, different accessories, and sometimes sweaters as well. So when she's doing garments, it tends to be around a size small. And Laura really works with a lot of fun colors and fun variegated yarns. So if you're a variegated yarn person, which I know I don't give that to you a lot, Laura is a good option for this. She just recently finished knitting her Salty Air tee, and the end result is so beautiful. I really highly recommend checking out her like project wrap-up video on that one where she's showing it off, because it's so good, and I think it's just a really good chance to get acquainted with her and her style and her very like calming energy. And I find it hard sometimes to explain what I like about a knitting podcast when it is one that is more chill and low-key, because perhaps unsurprisingly, if you've been listening to me talk for the last several minutes, I talk fast. You'll also see that I cut fast in my editing. Like, I am not a relaxed, calming knitting channel. So I tend to gravitate toward channels that are a little bit faster paced too. And it's very hard for me to pinpoint when I do really enjoy one that's slower editing and slower paced. I'm like, what? I can't even explain why it is that I like this one. Like, I think I just like Laura. I just find her very sweet and relaxing. I just feel like if she was my friend and I had a bad day, she'd be really good at calming me down. Maybe this is because I think one of the things on her channel that she's really good at is talking through the issues she's run into and the mistakes she's made and what she's had to do to fix it. So she is not one of these channels who's just popping up like, oh, I finished 2 more sweaters this week. Like, aren't they beautiful? Aren't they amazing? Everything went swimmingly. She will tell you if there was a struggle, you will know about it. All right, next up, a good enough girl.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Good Enough Girl. I'm Becky, coming to you from Kirkland, Washington. And I just like to share stuff about life, stuff about knitting, stuff about any crafts and hobbies.
So Becky's been making videos for about 5 months. She has 9 videos up right now and 44 subscribers. Her videos tend to be about 45 minutes long, so we're getting into the slightly longer territory now, and she's based in the Seattle area. So as far as what she knits, she's knit a lot of socks and a lot of fun variegated yarns and like spin cycle style yarns. So if that kind of color is your thing, Becky's your girl. And she's also started knitting some sweaters more recently as well, so I'm curious to see how her knits of choice kind of evolve as her channel keeps going. My favorite thing about Becky's channel is her philosophy, because as a recovering perfectionist, I need Becky's influence because her philosophy is anti-perfectionist, right? It's right there in the name, a good enough girl. It's good enough. And I need more good enough influence in my life. So kind of similar to Audrey, Becky is really high energy and bubbly in the way that she talks, but she's also much lower editing in her videos. So like if you are one of the people who watches my videos and is like, I mostly like you, but the way that you do your cuts really bothers me, go watch Becky because she won't do that to you. And if you're a person who does prefer more highly edited videos, go check her out anyway, because she is so good at being so high energy and keeping it going the whole time that like I, who like I said, tends to struggle with lower editing podcasts, I don't notice. Like in compiling this list, I knew that I wanted to make reference to sort of how edited or not edited these channels were. And in some of the cases, I knew I could just very easily make that note from having watched them before. But Becky's, I had to like go back. I had to watch like specifically watching for cuts because I was like, does she make cuts? And I'm watching it going, well, I haven't seen one yet, but there's no way she can just like keep it up like this with no cuts, right? Like she's definitely chopping. Like I just must have happened to land on a long clip. Like I sometimes have clips where I'll manage to talk for a whole minute before I have to cut something, but it's not common, right? No, Becky's just nailing it. Like Becky, if you see this, I don't know how you do it. I'm so impressed. And I would say that on her channel, the focus is definitely knitting. It's definitely a knitting channel at its core, but you do get quite a lot of bits and pieces of other aspects of her life and her interests. So the chat quotient is high. If it's not your thing, like if you're one of those people who's like, for the love of God, please just get to the knitting, probably not your best pick. But if you like those kinds of things, when you like the personality that you're watching, she's fantastic. She's also a teacher, which just wins her points in my books. And I think that really comes through sometimes just in the way that she thinks about things and looks at things. She just comes across as this really sort of empathetic and compassionate person in that very like classic teachery way. And I think it's a really lovely juxtaposition with the rest of her personality, because if I were to just hear just the way she talks, I think there's like a frankness to it. This is like a whole other topic, but like one of my biggest pet peeves is people who are like, I'm not mean, I'm just brutally honest, I'm just unfiltered, I just tell it like it is. Because I think that you don't actually have to tell someone that you hate their shirt. Like if it has no impact, like if it's not constructive, if you're not stopping them from harming someone or helping them to not embarrass themselves by telling them about something they can fix quickly in a bathroom that's clearly something they were not intending, I think that those are constructive forms of honesty. I actually don't think you have to be honest about your thoughts on literally everything at all times for no reason when it's going to be hurtful to someone. In the words of Taylor Swift, so casually cruel in the name of being honest. Like I just don't get the purpose. I think it's mean. And that has been my rant of the day. So just to watch someone who speaks in the sort of off the cuff way that she does, but to have it be not that sort of brutally honest take on things, but actually this very compassionate and considerate take, I just find it so refreshing and distinctive, and I just really enjoy watching her. All right, the next channel I want to talk about is the sock drawer.
What's up, knitters? I am James the Sock Guy, and I'd like to welcome you back to the sock drawer for episode number 7 of the podcast. 7 episodes. That's amazing, guys.
So James has been making videos for about 3 months. I think he has 7 of them out right now, and they tend to run between 30 and 40 minutes long. He currently has 132 subscribers, and he's right now based in Pennsylvania, but he is a fellow Canadian. So as you could perhaps tell from the name of his channel, James knits socks, 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 and more socks. So if you are a sock knitter, that's not really something that I am delivering to you on very frequently. Once in a while, I make my dad a pair of socks. That's about it. So if you're looking for more sock content, highly recommend the sock drawer. He does a lot of fun color work in really bright colors and different variegateds, uses some self-striping yarns. Like, there are zero neutrals on that Instagram feed. So again, if you're one of those people who's like, I cannot look at one more neutral knitting podcast, James. So similar to what I was saying about Becky, James is high energy, low editing in his style. He's very natural at talking to the camera in a way where, again, I'm like, I am cutting constantly. I am not a natural at talking to the camera in that way. I get stalled in the middle of sentences and kind of can't like spit it out. I just get stuck in front of a camera mid-sentence sometimes in the way that I just don't in real life. And apparently James does not. And now, just to state the obvious, he's a guy. There was not a single guy on my last roundup of podcasts. And even this time I was like, there's a couple knitting podcasts that I now watch that are hosted by men, but the couple that I do know of are really big ones, so they don't really fit the theme of this video. But I am all here for the breaking of gender stereotypes. James just seems like a dude who would like chat up my dad at the hardware store. If I ran into him, my stereotype brain would be like, he's gonna talk to me about hockey, not knitting. So I just think it's really cool to have people like James making knitting podcasts. And like I said, he's just such a natural at this. He's funny, he loves talking about his socks. Go watch James knit his socks. All right, next up, Moth Folk Studio.
Hi, welcome to the Moth Folk Studio podcast. I'm Suni. I am an independent artist and illustrator. I live in Vermont with my 2 cats and my partner, and it's a lovely life to be able to create art.
So Suni's only been making videos for a couple months, but she's been super dedicated to it. She's put out 9 videos already. They tend to run between 45 to 60 minutes. So we're now into like, these are good, beefy, long podcast episodes. And she's currently at 236 subscribers. So Suni's based in Vermont, and her style is very like earthy vibes. She works on a lot of accessories. She's also made this stunning colorwork sweater. And when she's knitting garments, they tend to be around a size medium. And she's also currently working on the heirloom quilt cardigan, which has been sitting in my personal Ravelry favorites for an eternity, and I just have never quite convinced myself to be willing to do that level of either seaming or picking up stitches. So I'm sort of living vicariously through that on her channel, and will maybe decide via her experience and how it continues to go whether I personally decide to do one of my own. But it's sort of satisfying that curiosity for me in the meantime. As for her vibes, Suni is an artist, and I think her style of art really ties into what she knits. So she draws and paints, and then she turns her work into like stationery and other things like that that you can buy. A lot of her work is inspired by the natural world and like the changing of the seasons and things like that. So you can really see how that ties into the like earthy vibes that she tends to knit with. And her career as an artist is sort of a recurring sidebar on her channel. So it's sort of a knitting / art podcast, and I really enjoy hearing about that art side of things, and particularly the way that she has turned her art into a business. And it also doesn't hurt that there's like always a very cute cat in the background. She's also one of those people who's been knitting forever. Like, I think she started when she was a kid, so she's just always kind of been messing around with it. She also does a little bit of sewing, and I find her podcast kind of tough to describe because it's very like grounding and calming, but without being low energy, and that's where I struggle to describe it. It's like high energy chill. Like, I don't think that doesn't sound like it makes sense. It doesn't sound like that should be able to be a thing, but like, it's not super low editing, but also she's not talking fast, but she's not talking slow. I don't know. This is why I'm showing you clips, because I'm obviously terrible at describing these things, but I think she has a really distinct vibe, and whatever it is, I really like it. All right, next up, we're going back to Baltimore, because the next one is Charm City Unicorns.
Hey boys and pearls, welcome to the Charm City Unicorns channel, where we talk about our knitting, crafting, and lifing shenanigans. I'm Shayla.
And I'm Profesh. No, I'm Heather.
So Shayla and Heather have been making videos for about 4 months. They put out 7 episodes. And you might recognize Shayla. She's the maker behind Black Pearl Magic. She makes those beautiful vinyl knitting project bags that you may have seen people have. They're just stunning. And this is where we're now starting to get into some channels that have actually started to get a little bit more of the attention that I think they deserve, but I think that they deserve more. So they're currently sitting at about 2,400 subscribers. And for Charm City Unicorns, like, you need to have your project, you need to have a tea, you need to have a snack, because these episodes are running like 2 hours long. So I kind of watch these sometimes in different ways. Sometimes I'll watch them in bits and pieces throughout the week, or sometimes if I have that kind of like perfect empty weekend afternoon, I'm like, yes, it's Charm City Unicorn time. That's my favorite way to watch it. Life just doesn't always work that way. So in terms of what they knit, again, if you are sick of neutral knitting podcasts, there is no antidote in the world of knitting podcasts more powerful than Charm City Unicorns. They are knitting color, they are knitting pinks, they are knitting neons. Like appropriately, they've created a t-shirt for their channel that says Knitting Barbie, because that is 1000% the vibe. They have such a distinct style that is so different from every other knitting podcast I've ever seen. Their knits are just like the definition of dopamine. And in terms of sizing, they tend to be knitting between like an XL and a 3XL between the two of them. Also, as you will have seen from that clip, they're always wearing amazing glasses. One of my personal favorite parts is to tune in and be like, which glasses are they wearing today? So I think kind of fitting the style of the things that they knit, it's very like giggly, fun, silly, but they're also getting down to business and telling you like all of the nitty-gritty details. So it's really the best of both worlds in that way. And I have a really hard time getting into two-person knitting podcasts. They are very nearly the only two-person podcast that I watch. I just really tend to prefer solo ones. So the fact that I enjoy theirs so much is a real testament to their dynamic. They also always have like a million projects on the needles. So this is in part why their episodes are so long, because they are not monogamous knitters. So if you're ever watching my channel being like, why aren't you talking about more things? Why have you just been knitting this one sweater for like 3 episodes? They can really help you out there. And as an intro to them, I honestly just recommend you go check out their episode number 1, because it wasn't very long ago, so it's not like it's grossly outdated or anything. And they have been on it in terms of their production value from day one. Like they've always had a great setup, so I don't think that there's anything in their first episode that you would find sort of distracting and less likely to be sucked in than if you watched a more recent one. So because that's when they really do their big introduction of like who we are, what this podcast is, I really recommend just starting there. All right, the next channel I want to shout out is Escarla.
Hey guys, my name is Escarla. Welcome back to my channel. This is my crafty little corner of the universe where I like to document my making. Pretty much that revolves around knitting, spinning, crocheting, and fiber arts related content.
So Escarla's been making videos for about a year, and she's done 50 videos, which like the consistency to post weekly for your entire first year, very impressive. She's currently sitting at about 3,600 subscribers. So her episodes tend to run between 20 to 40 minutes long, and she's based in Pennsylvania. She does quite a lot of color work, and she does kind of a mix of brighter colors and more earthy colors. She does some socks and other accessories, but she knits a lot of not even just sweaters, but specifically cardigans, which I find very interesting because I feel like just pullovers really seem to reign supreme in the knitting podcast world, and I'm starting to realize in my own knitting wardrobe, like I think what I would really get more use out of at this point, like I've made myself quite a lot of pullovers. Do I really need a lot more pullovers? It would probably be more useful to me to have more cardigans, and I feel like she's one of the only people who I'm really seeing actually focus on that as a category in their knitting, so I think that's very interesting. And in terms of sizing, she tends to be knitting around a size medium. So on her channel, you'll find a mix of videos that are more sort of standard knitting podcast format and also ones that are more of a vlog format. And Escarla is just like a ray of sunshine. Like she's just this like joyous, bubbly personality. And I really loved her video about spring and summer knitting plans, which just really fits that sunshine vibe real well. She does more editing in her videos than some of the other channels on this list, so if that's something that you look for, she's a good pick for that. I would also say that her focus is knitting, but she does do some crochet and spinning as well, if those are things that interest you. And one of the other really nice things about Escarla is that even though she has this really sort of bubbly, happy personality, she meshes that with also being very candid about how broader life impacts her knitting, and particularly her stash building habits. So I think that's a really sort of nice balance that she manages to strike. All right, next up, we've got Lochknits.
Hello, here we are. Welcome back to the Lochknits Knitting Podcast. My name is Haley. I am a tattoo artist, crafter, knitter, spinner, sewist, crocheter. That's it, I think.
So Haley's been making videos for about a year and a half. She has 28 videos out right now, and she's currently sitting at 3,800 subscribers. She's based in Pennsylvania, tends to be knitting around a size small or medium, and in terms of what she's knitting, Haley is the absolute antithesis of like boring, neutral, preppy knitting. Like Haley is knitting in neons, she's knitting in variegated, she's knitting all kinds of color work, a lot of accessories, also some sweaters. And I mean, I think you can see just from a brief introduction clip, she's a very distinct style. She's a tattoo artist. She's so much cooler than I will ever be. I watch Haley and I'm like, I'm such a square. But so again, like if you are sick of the norm of knitting podcasts and what kind of styles that tends to include, I don't think I've seen any other knitting podcast with someone whose style is as alt as Haley's is. I think she's also often actually recording from her tattoo studio, so it's just a fun atmosphere. She really leans into her style, and I think it works so well. All right, the next one I want to mention is two Sistahs knitting talking shit.
This is episode 9 of Two Sistahs Knittin' Talkin' Shit. And we are some good shit talkers. So good. I mean, we're the gold standard in shit talk. That's right.
Okay, Regina and Marian are just such a joy. Like, that's so obvious, you just watch them. But they've been making episodes for about 5 months now. They put out 9 episodes and they're currently at 5,200 subscribers. Their episodes tend to be about 45 to 60 minutes long, plus they will put out some little like blooper videos in between. So they're based in Atlanta and they're knitting a lot of accessories, especially shawls. One of them's knitting a beret right now. So there's not really relevant like sizes that I can tell you that they're knitting because that's not normally a factor in the things that they're working on. I think they're also sort of knitting all over the map in terms of like neutrals, colors, plains, variegateds, things like that. Now the thing that is so magical about these two together, and like I said, again, I tend to struggle with two-person knitting podcasts, but these two were childhood friends who reconnected a couple years ago over knitting, and you can just like see that warmth in between them of like, I have known you for decades. Just the depth of that familiarity and how well they know each other, it just brings such a like joyful comfort to watching them together. It's just wonderful. They're also just like here to have a good time. Like they're gonna tell you what cocktail they're drinking. They're gonna make you feel like you happen to be sitting at the table beside two girlfriends catching up over a drink and doing some gossiping, and like you just get to sit there and eavesdrop. It's very good. And while their episodes tend to be on the longer side, they're also very well organized. They have all their different little segments, but they also don't let that stop them from going off on a good tangent and getting each other into giggle fits sometimes. This podcast is also on the lower editing side, but that's a thing that I tend to notice less on two-person podcasts because the back and forth just I think makes it easier for the flow to keep going naturally anyway. Like I think that if I were doing a two-person podcast, mine would probably also be a lot lower editing, so that's just less noticeable. But yeah, they are just, these two together, such a joy. All right, next up, buy a thread.
To flop is to be human, I fear. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maddie, also known as By a Thread Knits, because I am in fact hanging on by a thread. Haha, thank you. So today I am going to be sharing with you my flops.
So Maddie's been making videos for about a year and a half. She's put out about 25 so far, and she currently has 5,500 subscribers. The length of her videos varies quite a bit, but I would say it probably averages around 30 minutes. She's based in Seattle. She tends to knit lots of sort of fun color garments, usually around a size small or medium. And the name of her channel really captures things quite well. She always seems like slightly bewildered in the most endearing way. She's so funny. She has such a like dry, self-deprecating sense of humor, which is just, it's my thing. I think this really shines in her reviewing my flop era video where she goes through past knits that like didn't turn out quite great and reflecting on them and what she learned from them. So I really like her like lighthearted approach to learning through trial and error. And when I first found her channel, the thing that absolutely sold me on like Maddie as a person, I checked out her Instagram and she has this post about her thesis project that she did, which I think was when she was quite new to knitting. And her thesis was sort of related to this like bad experience that she had with an academic advisor, I think it was, who made a really sexist comment to her, and she just decided to like make a knit about that in response to that experience, and I just think it's so brilliant. All right, last one. This brings us to balanced skein.
I wanted to discuss a topic that has been on my mind for a while, and I figure what better way to do that than with a knitting chat.
So Kendra's been making her knitting podcast for about 3 years now. She's put out more than 70 videos. Like she has been on this. She currently has about 6,300 subscribers, and her videos are definitely on the shorter side. They tend to run between 10 to 20 minutes long. I'm not actually sure where she's based. She's the only podcast on this list who I couldn't find a clip of her just like introducing herself and where she's from, because she just doesn't do that on her channel. She tends to knit a lot of textures, a lot of cables, ribbing, some lace, and it's sort of a good mix of neutrals and some richer colors. And she tends to be knitting around a size medium. So Kendra's channel is sort of chill and laid back, but not in a low editing way. It's just sort of like the tone of her voice. And her videos, like I said, they're a bit shorter, so they're more concentrated, usually on like a specific topic. So she recently did a video that I recommend that's basically about deleting Instagram and falling in love with your other hobbies again. And apparently I watched this on the right day, because I was like, you know what, Kendra, I will delete Instagram off my phone today. So like I haven't deactivated my account. I can still access it from the computer, but just if you really realize how like sad your little lizard brain is when you delete an app off your phone and then catch yourself like repeatedly over the course of the next several days trying to open something that doesn't exist anymore. So that tells me, yeah, it was probably time to take that off there for a bit. But I just really love the style of Kendra's videos. They're really thoughtful. They're really about her engaging with her crafting in a very intentional and like critical way. She really just feels like the kind of person who like, you just want to pick their brain. Like if you are kind of debating something, not sure how to handle something, like she's the friend you'd want to call, because you know that like she would ask you the right questions to kind of get your gears turning. And that's what I feel like her channel does really well. that is it. That is my list of smaller knitting podcasts that you may not have heard of. I hope that it's introduced you to some channels that you're interested in checking out. Please don't forget to subscribe to them if you do check them out and you want to keep following them. Subscribers mean so much, especially when your channel is just starting out. Like, seeing that someone has watched your video and kind of given you that vote of confidence that they want to sign up for more. When your channel is just starting out, you notice every single new subscriber. And also, especially on the channels that are really, really tiny, if you like one of their videos, leave a comment, because that can make a really big difference in the algorithm too. Now, I'm curious if you have ever thought about starting a knitting podcast. Is this an idea that you've toyed with? If it's something that you're thinking about but are kind of unsure about how to get started, I did do like a 2-part video series at the start of this year all about the behind the scenes of my YouTube. The first one is the breakdown of all of the stats and all of the finances behind the first year of the channel, and then the second one is just like all of the behind the scenes stuff of what worked and what didn't work over the course of the first year. So if it's something that you're thinking about doing, or if it's something that you're early in your journey of doing, I'd recommend checking those out. And in the meantime, thank you so much for coming to knit with me today. If you'd like to be here next time, I hope you'll consider subscribing if you're not already. If you already are though, you're my favorite. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh my god, how do I still have like 5 of them?